one of the issues you sometimes have when you're doing an engine like this, where you stop and start and stop and start, is there's things you think, oh, I should do that, and then you forget about it and you do the bigger jobs because the bigger stuff's more interesting or whatever. And then you think, oh, I better do that. And so yesterday I thought, oh, I better put the plugs in the cases because, you know, it's getting close to the end. I better do that. So I went through, found the plugs, like there's these ones here for what would be the oil cooler takeoffs on an engine with an oil cooler. This one doesn't have one. And there's a plug down here that is for the drilling that goes through to this hole here. And there's one on the other side underneath that is like an oil drain back from up in the breather area up here. And then I was looking and I saw this one and I thought, where's that one from? I thought, oh yeah, that's right. That's the one that goes behind the starter motor in the oil gallery that's drilled back here. In there. And then I thought of a word. 1 syllable, 4 letters, rhymes with duck, and then threw a screaming hissy fit. So that was yesterday. And today I'm here to work out how I'm going to fix it. And the reality is I'm not exactly sure. To do it properly, I need to remove the alternator cover and then get the starter motor out. But quite possibly, I know the starter motor had to go in before the flywheel assembly went on and the starter idler gear, because one of the screws was blocked by the starter idler gear. Now I might be able to access the head of the screw and undo it enough that I can undo this one and the other one here, slide the starter motor down and out as I'm undoing the screw. Or I might need to pull the flywheel and everything off, which is a lot of work. I don't want to do it. The other option is to get the cap off the starter motor where the brushes are behind here, but I can get this screw out. But this one, which is sort of obstructed, I can't get a socket on. And because of the way the screw's recessed, you need a fairly thin wall socket to get in there. A spanner won't get in there. Even if I grind my little 8mm ring spanner, I don't know that it's going to reach. So I'm trying to work out what I might do to get myself out of this stupid mess. And so we're back with today's installment of What's the Idiot Doing? I got a little 8mm socket kicking around, machined it down on the lathe so it would fit in around the bolt head, and hot sticked a little arm to it. And so this is now my starter motor bolt removing tool. And we're going to see if this allows me to get this off, which then I can get the plug in and then put it back on again. This is where the starter brushes are. And I remember I said I wasn't going to check the starter brushes. Well, now I'm checking them. First, remove the 2 plugs I put in yesterday before I realised I was an idiot. Well, today's version of it. At least there's no oil in it yet, because when there's oil in it, everything just gets really sticky. If you're doing it when it's dry, you can just sort of blow everything out. And the passages, you're not worried about oil getting everywhere. So, where'd my tool go? Lost it already. I don't even know if something like my flexi tool will get onto it. There we go. That's what these bolts look like. They go all the way through into the end of the starter motor where the bearing is, and that bit is what's bolted to the engine. So this is the magnets are in there, and this is just the cap. Let's see how we go. hopefully once the screw comes out, I can get it past the boss and then get it out. And I'm not sure, because I did have a bit of Loctite on it, I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get it out before I can't use that anymore, or it'll get stuck in the case. So now I can just use my little ring spanner just to turn the end so we can get it out enough to realise that we can't get it out any further. And then I need to put it all back together. So I might put this one back in. If I have this screw back in here, at least then the starter motor won't all fall apart on me as I pursue this folly. It's loose. Okie doke. Now that it's loose, what we should be able to do, what I might do first, just get a white texter, and there are lines, but I'll just put a line on the side. So I know exactly where it needs to be when it lines up again. And if I can turn it around a bit, look at that, it's out. Now, can we get this off? And more importantly, back on again? Yes, just with a minor scratch. Okay, there's a, oh, it's a 4-brush starter. I didn't realise these had 4-brush starters. There you go. The Panthers had 4-brush starter motors, and then when they went to these Nippon ones, I think the Panther one's a bigger body starter. When they went to these style ones, they went to 2-brush. And I just assumed this would have been a 2-brush, but it's a 4-brush, which means it's going to be quite hard to get all those 4 brushes back in to get this cap on. This is the price of stupidity. Anyway, the offending plug can now screw in. I'll just coat it. This is either 477 or 478, I think. Sorry, 577 or 578 Loctite. It's a thread sealant. There's 2. I can't remember which one it is. And I did try and clean the gunk off the tube to see if the numbers were still there, but the numbers are long gone. But people who use thread sealants will sort of know what it is I'm talking about. It's a very common thread sealant. One of them has some thread locking capacity and one doesn't, from memory. Now this plug goes into an oil gallery that's drilled in along here, and it actually runs back to here, which is the oil feed to the primary drive cover, which then oil through the primary drive cover into the crank. And on the way, it also feeds a gallery that goes off to the other side to feed the piston squirter in the left-hand side of the engine. And there is actually a plug in there already, which usually they didn't have. It was an open gallery, but there's a plug in there already, I realised, that has some sort of hex head in it. I didn't pull it out because I didn't want to disturb it. So this one isn't actually doing the sealing work, it would appear. I'm not sure why they put a plug inside and there's a plug on the outside. Back in the old Panther days, this was just a piece of aluminium thread with a slot in the end of it for a screwdriver. And progressively as it went along, it got a flanged head and a sealing washer, and now there's a second plug in front of it. So, there we go. I don't think I'm going to be able to torque it up. It's a 10 by 1.5 thread, and usually a 10mm aluminium washer will probably go to 15 to 20 Newton meters. So it's still fairly tight. but I don't think I can get a tool onto it. I haven't got a long ball end 5mm hex piece. I've got this one, but I don't think it goes in far enough to really get a good tighten on it. So is this one going to fit? Yep. So I'm just going to do it tight. Have a guess. I'm pretty good at over tightening things, so it shouldn't be too hard to get it quite tight. I reckon that'll probably do. And it's in. So that wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. Not good, because I have to get that nightmare back on. But not too bad. And I made a nice new tool. It's always fun making tools. Any excuse. One thing that I'll usually do when I have a starter motor apart like this is I just clean up the section of a commutator where the brushes run. But I don't want to have too much debris flying around because I can't really get it out terribly easily. One thing I often like to do is put a little bit of grease in the bush. It's at the very end of the starter motor there. I'll see if I can get it in there with the 4 brushes. It's a bit harder with 4 brushes. I don't know how I'm going to get this back together, frankly. I'm dreading it already. I'm not even sure how to start this. That's at the front-ish. Then these 2 are going to be at the back, so they'll probably need to go in first. Goodness. You know when you thought something probably wasn't a good idea, you did it anyway, then you just got confirmation that you're an idiot. Now you're an idiot. I can't even get the cover. Oh. So I put those plugs back in. That'll help. Idiot. Okay. So I'll get my collection of little picks. I may even get my little sticky base lamp and point them in there to try and help me see it. And then goodness, we aren't even under yet, are we? There we go. Now we're under. So the one at the back goes in. The one on that side that's come all the way out. I can tell you this one is not a team player. Get a hook onto the end of it maybe? No, it's right out. can't see what I'm doing. You can't see what I'm doing either, but I'm sure you can feel my pain. Good Lord. The problem is with 4 of the brushes, there's just so much going on. Now the reality of this situation is that eventually I will get this on. I know it because I've done this sort of thing enough times in the past to know that eventually I will succeed. The problem is that sometimes it takes so long to get to the point of success that you kind of just gone nuts. One of the brushes is right out again. The other ones is out. Out again. Good Lord. I can't think of any way to hold them in because the springs are just so strong. And realistically, the springs need to be strong because they need to hold them out. We can get the... I might get a little tape. I'd rather not scratch the end of my starter motor cap like crazy, if possible. Can't even get the tape between the cover and the cases. That's how tight it is. I'll see if that works. Okay, so I think they're all out now. Oh, my light's died. Yep, all the brushes have come out of their things. Actually, I'll pop it out. I'm really not sure how to keep these in their position. I can't think of any way to zip tie them in or hold them back with anything that I can pull out afterwards. You can probably put a big washer in there between them, but then you've got to get it out. And that would be the problem. So I'm really not sure how I'm going to make this work. Wonder how they assemble them in the factory. Probably some special little holding tool that just holds them in place, pushes them out, and it just pops in and away it goes, because there's no way they're going to be dealing with this sort of fast at the factory. It's times like these often I just go and Google it and see if anyone else has a good idea. So I've put little zip ties around all the brushes to hold them back. But the reality is that the diameter of the commutator is about 28.4 mil. The distance between the steel pieces is 30.5. So there's only sort of 2 mil, which means that even with the brushes pushed all the way back, they're only just over nearly 29 mil. So I don't know if this is going to help, but it might help me get closer, or it might help me get started. Although I'm not sure how I'm going to get them off. I guess I'll hook them and see if I can pick them out of the way. Or just start screaming at it again. What I might do is take the back one off. Get it in. Getting one of them in is not so hard. It's the other three that are the problem. Sounds like the music guys have got a Hammond organ going. I didn't know they had a Hammond. Although frankly it wouldn't surprise me. Oops. And that's what I didn't want to do, was drop the zip tie into the starter motor. That's one. Who knows, this idea might have some legs. Possibly more legs than anything else I've thought of. If I could reach my other pliers, I've got a pair of side cutters. A nice, might be able to reach them. Snap-on pair that have this gunk in them. And what that usually does is, if you cut something, it grabs hold of what it is you've cut. Although in this instance it didn't. They're probably 30 years old now. Okay, that's 3 of them in. Number 4. I can't see to pull my zip tie down. There it is. Don't think I'll even get to cut it. Know that. There we go. Trying to grab hold of it. It's out with the brush poked out, but the other brushes must be holding it. If you're thinking, gee, I wish I could see what he's doing, I wish I could see what I was doing too, because I haven't got a clue. And there we go. Line the white marks up, although we'll need to spin them around a bit probably to get our lovely bolt in. And that's the thing, you persevere until it works. Because sooner or later, you'll get there. No matter how much you want to kill it, calling an airstrike on it, eventually you'll get to where you need to be. Try and find the hole at the other end. There's a groove, there's 4 magnets, and between the 4 magnets there's a hole, and that's where 2 of these screws go. So that's why you need to line everything up, as you'll feel when you... That might even be at the bolt hole. I think it is. Yep, that one's going in. So we'll start this one. Hopefully it'll go in nice and easy. It does. Someone's on my side. Okay, I'm not sure at which point I could start using that. Not yet. It's one of those jobs if you can only get one flat at a time. So it takes you 5 minutes to get the screw in. Well, at least you didn't need to pull the alternator cover off. It's like a chant. Keep telling yourself of all the time you saved yourself by not doing the things you didn't want to do, and you'll be happy. I certainly am, because I really did not want to pull the alternator cover off. That just sucks. Just to deal with all the goop and all that, and I just could not be bothered. And I know now that the starter motor brushes are okay, and these things have a 4-brush starter. So realistically, you could use this 4-brush starter motor in lots of things because it's a bolt-in. It never occurred to me that they'd started using 4-brush starters. Although it might even be a hangover from the bigger engines, because even the 1200 multistratas and monsters and 1260 things, they're all just glorified Panthers. And so if you pull one apart, it's pretty obvious where it all came from. And sometimes they're just pushing themselves for space or ability to do the things they probably want to do, but they just can't do because stuff just doesn't fit. I think I'll call that on and tight. I'm so happy. Get rid of my white marks. And there we go. And because I had the sealant in here, I'm just going to blow these out. This one here is oil pump out, and this is the oil cooler out. And then when the oil cooler, if it was here, comes back in this one, which is this hole, and it goes down into this big cavity. If you have an oil cooler, this one here also goes to this hole here. And so on engines with oil coolers, they have this spring steel piece that goes over this hole to restrict the oil that comes out of this hole to then push the oil through the cooler. So if you put an oil cooler on, you need the springy bit that goes on here, and the oil comes back through a hole just up here, which you can't see. Whereas if you don't have an oil cooler, the oil goes in here and down out here into the oil filter. That's how it works. So now I can just blow, because there's nothing on here, I can just blow through the passages, make sure they're clean, and I'll put these plugs back in. Probably should put some new alloy washers on them. Don't like reusing that stuff if I don't have to. And off we go. Start with earmuffs. So we have 2 new alloy washers. Get some more white goop. I do need to buy some more of this, but this tube's probably only 25 years old. I don't know. Don't go through a lot of it. Tighten these to 30 Newton meters. Sometimes I tighten these sorts of things in steps, so that way you don't, if it looks like the washers are deforming like crazy, then maybe I won't go to 30. Yeah, I don't think I'll quite go to 30. It's 25. 27. 29. Actually, I'm concerned that that one has squeegeed itself out, maybe. Okay, I can deal with that later if need be. Okay, so plug crisis averted. Not my finest work, but I've got a nice new tool at least.